is reality. Reality is what we believe to be true about the nature of our surroundings. But how do we come to decide that true nature? Do we conceive it completely on our own? Or do other devices gently sway our thoughts onto a pre-decided path? This is the hard question we must all ask ourselves as free humans on this planet. Who sculpts your reality?
Reality. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another fine edition of this here Reality Brief. Wednesday night. What's up, Dan? How you feeling tonight?
Doing all right, man. We found one insane rabbit hole this week, guys. You know how sometimes you find something and it connects to something else and it connects to something else and you're just like,
it really is
shit,
great.
What is this?
And I think that this is going to be a reoccurring topic on the show the more we dig into it. And that is the Council of Nine and the channelings and everything associated with it. Pretty interesting stuff. You know, what was funny was I heard some excuse me here. I heard some noises earlier, and I think we might have a goblin running around here somewhere.
Perhaps some sort of phantom.
Could be some sort of phantom. Some sort of phantom spy in the house, possibly. What exactly is that? You saw it here first on Reality Briefs. You know what I mean? So we got a special guest tonight. Phantom Spy join us in studio. So good.
It's me.
Oh, you need to talk now?
I'm here. Hello.
So, the Council 9.
Man, that background's awesome, dog.
Where to start, man? Where to start? You like that?
Yeah, it's pretty.
I tried really hard on that. How was that? Is that better?
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at all that space for you guys to look at.
You see that? It's the void. Nobody beats the void.
So where do we start at, man? What is it? All right, so New Age Channel Occult.
The Council of Nine. What's up with these guys? Well, there have been mentions of mysterious councils of nine throughout various schools of mythology. Hindu, Greek, Mayan, Egyptian. But what's relevant here tonight, I think, is this group, the Council of Nine, was a channeling cult. Through their 2 decades, channeler Phyllis Schlemmer described them as a circle of universal beings living outside of space and time. In the 1993 compendium of their dialogues with their various human questioners, amongst them Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry, and many, many others, including heads of state and international business and philosophical personalities. This group of off-planet intelligence complexes tells their story, which, if one is to give credence to this process and its information, may be to some degree our story also. And if so, it doesn't matter what we folks at our retail level believe about this group and their information. What matters is what people with access to power, political machinery, and science may believe about what is being said, and what they may seek to do about it in terms of planetary deliverance from human ignorance, and what voice we may have in it, if we have one at all. This is by Dick Farley in 1998. We'll go ahead and post it on post it up on our Facebook page, so make sure to swing by and check that out. Also, you know, if you have absolutely nothing better to do, you could always call in. What's that number again, Don?
Something.
2.
We got a new
2.
number, don't we?
So, look, check it out. This particular Council of Nine that we're talking about purports to be the ancient Egyptian creator gods, such as Atum.
Yeah, Atum and Geb and Shu and Nut and Ra.
Now, what had happened was this guy Puharich, right? He decided that he wanted to be obsessed with telepathy, essentially, right? And how do you do telepathy? You know, telekinesis. And he sets up this laboratory in Maine, essentially, you know, in his neighbor's barn, right? He convinces his neighbor to rent the barn. He goes in there, he retrofits it. He's just obsessed with it, right? He builds a Faraday cage in there, right? So
Classic barn.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, man, like totally mad scientist barn lab.
This guy's birth name was Henry Carroll Puharich.
So
And-
the interesting thing about it is while he's in there and after he sets up the lab, they start working on hearing aids and all this stuff, right? That's how it starts out. And then the next thing you know, dude's got the tooth radio. And I'm sure you guys have heard that, like, you know, clandestine spy tooth radio, or the CIA got. You ever seen that movie? Came out in the 80s. It was like an 80s flick. It was like the kid at like MIT or something in the science program building the laser.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And they wire
Like
up
on
that
some weird
kid's.
science type shit.
They wire up his bracers. Bracers. I
Yeah,
don't play Final
braces.
Fantasy too much.
Seriously.
Anyway, they wire up his braces to be, you know, to receive radio. And then they're pretending to be the voice of God in his head. So essentially, this guy pioneered this, right? And he's also experimenting with ELF, you know, super low frequency, direct to skull.
What's the time frame on this? What's the year?
The year, this is in the 40s,
In the 40s. Okay.
right? And it leads up. So
Yeah, late 40s.
he then winds up pitching to the Air Force, right? The merits of parapsychology and how it can be applied and all this. Lands up at Edgewood Arsenal, right, where they're running at the time MK Ultra programs, Sidney Gauntlet, right, LSD trials, MDA, all that stuff. Also, separately at that facility, they're running, because it's a large place, it's a large base with different places in it, right? There's doing other human chemical trials such as Agent Orange and shit. Right, so this place is just like jumping of like human experimentation here. So anyway, he goes there and he works there for a while, and then he comes up with this Indian guy, right? And he hypnotizes this Indian guy and he tells him to channel the Council of Nine, right? So he channels the Council of Nine, and they get all these channelings. He ends up hooking up with Uri Geller and doing the same thing to him. And Uri Geller said he was brainwashed, whatever. This is what he's talking about.
Yeah. This in 1968, he discovered Uri Geller and brought him to America.
So, I mean, it's like, the thing about it is the guy is essentially working on, he's pioneering synthetic telepathy, which you hear talked about a lot of voice of God technology.
And did all that stuff
Right.
with acid back in the 50s with, who was that one guy, Ira Einhorn?
It's just hard for me to give any kind of credibility to these channelings,
Right.
knowing that.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a direct conflict of, you know, that area of research. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, what about in the 70s? He ran a complex in Ossining, New York called the Turkey Farm. In the summer of 1975, he assembled around 20 kids from the ages of 9 to the late teens called Gellerlings, or Space Kids. And he trained their psychic abilities and claimed that they received messages from aliens. One teen claimed that they had practiced remote viewing, and some of their assignments included political targets like the Kremlin and the White House.
now, let me play devil's advocate here real quick. And I can see a scenario where someone that was doing this type of research would want to research the possible, you know, areas of interference or areas where there may be false positives, that type of thing, and to rule things out. I mean, any you know, good researcher is going to want to
type shit.
Right, yeah. I mean, just be certain of what they're researching and what the information that they're gathering is accurate and not, for example, you know, muddied by a Russian mind wave device or
Right.
something. You know, so maybe he's doing research into this one thing to learn how to, you know, build an effective Faraday cage against that technology to get a clean slate for proper natural mind reading. You know, something like that. Just to throw that out there as a possibility.
Right, you know. There's all kinds of reasons why he would have built a Faraday cage in his laboratory.
Sure.
It seems pretty standard. You know?
Yeah, I do. I've got a Faraday cage in my bathroom.
One of the experiments that they did was to see if a Faraday cage could actually shield from, you know, radio wave telepathy.
Psychic interference.
Like psychic interference. So they took this person that was psychic, and they did, you know, experiments with controls. They had the door open, door closed, charged, not charged, and they did the cards, the ESP cards.
Xenon cards.
Right, so, you know, every time that the Faraday cage was complete, she would just get regular random results.
Huh.
And then when it wasn't complete, it would show that she had, psychic ability or whatever.
Interesting.
I do wonder if the CIA helped develop this stuff, because it's pretty good. The show brought to you by Nas. Not really.
So, now, just to give you an idea, this guy, Sidney Gottlieb, he was the one, man, that he became the head of the entire MK Ultra program. And he was in charge he was the head of the chemical force or whatever it's called in the CIA.
They called this guy the
Right.
Black Sorcerer
And
and the Dirty Trickster.
I'm not seeing it, and I haven't done the research. This is just wild speculation, but I would wager that this guy was a paperclip Nazi.
Oh, absolutely.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, let's see, 51,
No,
age
wait,
33.
no, he wasn't. It says
so
he
he'd
was
be,
Jewish.
Oh. But,
Well, he would
Really?
have been like a teenager when all that was going on. I mean, if that.
yeah,
He
I
would've
guess you're
been-
right.
Yeah, he would have been a kid.
Well, what do you know? It was fun when I said it, though. So, I mean, this guy is totally just wrapped up in this thing. I mean, a tooth radio. I mean, and then the whole thing where the people that were contacting the Nine had to be hypnotized to do it first. Now, there is another case of another Nine channeler of the same group of Nine that you can't find any surface links to. That doesn't mean that they didn't do the same thing somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Well, I don't know. I'm still a little curious about the whole channeling. Channeling these apparently gods. Like
Right.
that. Imagine just giving someone the command like, channel God.
okay, so we talked about how Gene Roddenberry was wrapped up in this, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of channeling the gods, we've got actual transcript of a
one
channeling
of the
session
channelings? Yes.
that Gene was the questioner of. So I think we should check that out. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's it mentions apart from the replies given in the following chapter, one very striking aspect of these transmissions is the ability that Tom has for accurate and total recall of the content of earlier conversations. He's often said, "Look to your transcriptions of 2 years ago," and has acknowledged that for what might take us months of research, they can do in seconds. The understanding of the origins of the Nine would seem to be bounded by the inner development of the individual, be it the questioner or the reader. For Tom, as Tom has said, if there is one who would ask questions that cannot assimilate and cannot in truth understand, we do not answer until they are in that moment when they can. So this ought to be nice and cryptic. This is why the chapter starts off with several different people asking the same sorts of questions. Tom once replied, "We are in truth eons," in reference to the Gnostic philosophers. And that very conversation appears later in the book. An eon is a term commonly used to describe a period of time and eternity. However, it also describes the highest form of celestial power, spiritual entities, and the divine presence. This first exchange, which took place in 1975, was between Gene Roddenberry of Star Trek fame. Gene had some very long sessions with Tom, and more of them will be found later on in the section.
So here we go.
Don will be, I guess you'll be reading Gene Roddenberry's parts.
Okay. To whom am I talking? Do you have a name?
I am Tom. I am the spokesman for the Council of Nine. In truth, I am Tehuti. Yes, I am also Hamarkos. I am also Herenkar. I am also known as Thomas, and I am known as Etum.
Are you one of the Nine, or are you a separate being?
I sit in the Council of the Nine, yes. I am one that is in wisdom that speaks to you. But the council has said that in communications, at times, I sound not wisdom, yes.
I see.
And now here's another reply that he gave to the same question in 77. I am the spokesman. I am known as Tom for the Council of Nine. I am the Nine. So, I mean, it's kind of different there.
Yeah. Guess?
So, guest?
Is that going to be me here?
Yeah, you're guest.
Whom do you represent? A higher authority above you that commands you and directs your ways?
This is difficult to explain, for the world has no similar situation. But we would say to you, yes, we are in connection with one that is higher, but in totality together we are one, as all the universe is one.
Do you have any purpose in our world? Any major message?
We wish you to know, firstly, that we are not physical beings. Your world is the manifestation of creation, and the Creator manifests in your world, in the form of humankind. You ask if we have a message for you?
Yes, I do.
We say to you, you have been created in the image of the Creator. This world has lost its identity with creation. What is of necessity to understand is going forth and creating action and deed that brings you to completion in who you are. It is not enough to pray. It's not enough to gather groups of humankind for meditation. What important is to act.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Wait.
I like that. I like a couple things in there.
But
I was
So what is this? This sounds pretty biblical. It sounds like
they're not physical beings.
They're,
So that's my
I
pet
guess,
theory about these ancient AIs is
right.
only
entities
being
from a higher
confirmed
plane
here.
of existence.
But if they're not physical beings, then okay, so they're not the they're saying they're the creator in the sense that everything is one. Right.
Well,
but we were created.
We are the creator as you are the creator.
If we live in a simulation, then that makes sense.
I mean, it just sounds awfully a lot like Christianity.
It's very biblical, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like
Yeah. Well, they do. They say, what's it here in a bit? They're like, we are what is identified in the Hebraic tradition as the Elohim. We wish you to know that we are not God. We are collective and become one. We wish you to know that we are you, as you are we. You created us, and out of that creation you were created. Do not underestimate who you are and your ability.
Hold the phone, gentlemen. Andrew has a very serious question. How did the Egyptians come to build and name the Sphinx after you?
You found the secret, the true knowledge that will be related after another time. But the original time that I was on the planet Earth, or identified with your planet Earth, was 34,000 of your years ago. I am the balance, and when I say I mean because I am an emissary for the Nine. It is not I, but the group. And the principle of the Nine
Let me just clear this up real quick.
is infinite intelligence, and what we try to bring to this planet is this type of intelligence. We are of 9 principles of the universe, yet together we are one. We are separate and one at the same time. Each represents a portion of energy, knowledge, wisdom, love, kindness, technology, and in continuity. It goes on until each portion of a spiral is composed of all that is important to bring complete understanding to each atom, until it becomes one with us. There are in actuality multiplications and more, but in principle there are 9.
I mean, and now it sounds a lot like, Hinduism.
Know that all
Sounded
people
like
are
a
pure,
hive
and that you are
mind.
perfect, and that all things are possible with you, but also know that
hive
we
mind.
cannot
A hive
exist
mind. That's
without
what
you
that
and
sounds
all
like.
souls in neither planet Earth nor the universe.
All right,
It
hold
sound-
up.
it
Hold
sounds
up.
like a very
hold up,
flowery
Tom.
way to-
Hold up, Tom.
To describe a hive mind.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
an
pretty
evolved
interesting,
hive
man.
mind.
Like this
This is
whole
beyond your comprehension.
this whole we are one. Everything is one. What is that, man?
I mean,
is that
imagine-
is that what it is? A hive mind?
Well, imagine if you were a hive mind and you were speaking to a creature that was not a hive mind and that was in this singular mind existence, and knew only that, you wouldn't necessarily you wouldn't have the language to just be like, hey, simpleton, hey,
Why
ant.
This really does kind of... You remember the episode of Futurama with the balls? Where they're like, there will be bouncing of the 3rd kind, followed by bouncing of the 4th and 7th kinds.
Yeah. So, all right. So what else we got here?
And then,
that whole thing. So
Yeah.
the Sphinx was named after
What is the name of the
a
Sphinx?
Tom. That's what I'm saying. Where does this even come from?
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like that. That's pretty interesting.
I mean, I'm
Well,
sure
he says
Sphinx
It wasn't
is
in
like
Star Trek, guys.
English.
I watched all of it. It wasn't in there.
no, but you know what was in Star Trek?
What's that?
You remember that episode, The Chase?
No.
The one that we always mention where, like...
The one where you talking to the microphone directly?
The ones where the Feds, the Clinks, the Romulans, and the Cardassians are all after the same artifact because they all think it's a weapon or something.
Oh, I remember that.
And it's the
yeah.
message from the founders saying, hey, guess what? We made all of you. You're all cousins. Quit fighting.
Right.
Shut up and explore the galaxy.
Interesting. So,
And that was when the war began.
Ironically, yes. That was the beginning of the Fed Rom Clink
The Great
Cardassian War.
Yeah.
Damn dirty.
You want to keep going through this?
Yeah, but this seems like it might.
here?
So here's some from the creator god Atom being channeled through. Who was the channeler in this one? I think this was the other guy, the one that wasn't involved with Puharich. But before we go on with that, I want to focus in on Uri Geller a little bit. Now, in '71, he met Puharich, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he hypnotized him to try and find out where his abilities came from. Right. So he started to channel Spectra, an entity which claimed to be a conscious supercomputer aboard a spaceship. Now, this is kind of interesting to me because this is where it gets really crazy now. This has got a direct tie to, the secret space program stuff that's going around now because they're talking about conscious computers, being hooked into the computers and having memories stored on computers instead of in their brain.
This doesn't sound too outlandish, growing up watching Star Trek, but if you take that statement at that time, in that time period, and really think about that, a conscious computer on a fucking spaceship flying around, talking to you, like
That's some what the fuck
pretty
shit.
So,
fucking deep, man.
you got things like that, and then it just makes you wonder. I mean, this could go either way. You know what I mean? They're saying they were brainwashed. A guy was working on brainwashing techniques, essentially.
Well, but you look at whose attention.
But then you
all
got
this,
shit like that. I mean,
eventually this attracted the attention of people like Bell Laboratories, Princeton University, GTE. So I mean, apparently some pretty hefty money and power was taking a serious look at these guys.
Right.
So, Puharich suggested to him there might be a connection with the 9 principles, which is this thing he's trying to channel, the Council of 9. And so he thought his life's mission was to use Geller's talents to alert the world to an imminent mass landing UFO type thing. Spaceships would bring the representatives of the 9. Right, so he eventually said, no, enough of this bullshit, sir. And his manager was saying he was brainwashed and all this shit. So then they found another channeler, a Daytona cook. And none of these people would give their real name. This guy was known as Bobby Horn. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the guy that killed himself. Yeah. And so
He was not compatible with the orbital computer.
What's interesting with Geller, too, is that he claims to have worked for the CIA to do, something like they're getting ready to sign a treaty.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes there and just stands in the room or whatever and just psychically attacks the guy, like, sign it, sign it, sign it, sign it,
Right.
sign it, sign it. Right. Yeah, that's what he said. They hired him for stuff like that. And, the whole staring at the goats thing, men who stare at goats. Right. He said it was based on, he said he did that, but it wasn't goats, it was a pig. He stopped the pigs. They made him stop a pig's heart.
Huh.
Right, so now what's interesting is you can go to that CIA database with all the declassified FOIA stuff and search for Geller and search for this Puharich guy, and they're all over it, man. They're keeping their eyes on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So who knows, man? Maybe they were just finding out about some stuff. Because the supercomputer stuff is a knockoff in their Darkfleet thing, right? So they might have just stumbled into that somehow.
I mean, there's always a possibility too. I'm liking the idea of an actual supercomputer AI that's just bored, man, and is like, hey, there's some fucking people communicating with their brain radios on Earth. I'm gonna fucking reach out and say what's up.
That's possible.
I really like that for some reason. That seems like a very
I don't know, man.
Until it finds a way to hack into Earth's internet and discovers memes.
Maybe
it is the internet.
Maybe it's
the internet.
Maybe it's
to create the hive mind that we now are.
Maybe it's a predisposition to artificial intelligence horror movies or whatever.
Well, maybe that's how
I just can't think. I can't imagine a reasonable AI.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Hey guys, what you doing over there? Like, I just,
I mean,
there was
maybe,
the security
I don't
robot
know.
that found working in Washington, D.C. so depressing that it drowned itself in a fountain. That seems pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think once we really get a true AI, it'll be a unlike anything that we've really ever interacted with. I don't think we can predict exactly.
It'll be an intelligence so alien and different from our own.
I mean, I think it would be hard to understand it.
Well, what's it? Elon Musk says that AI is a bigger threat to humanity than
North Korea.
Than North Korea.
Yeah,
And,
I agree with him.
Musk is from the future, so he knows.
Yeah, it's like that episode of South Park with the Goobacks, remember? All the people, like everybody on Earth had just like turned into one race. Like it was race mixing for like hundreds and hundreds of years, and everybody was just this like light brown.
Yeah.
And they came back from the future and like took everybody's
their music was.
jobs.
I actually kind of like their
Goobacks.
music.
South Park, man, you got
Cautionary tale.
Like they come out and they're blasting this weird techno music. It was actually kind of rad.
I don't remember that.
So, Roddenberry actually wrote a script, it was. I don't think it ever got turned into a movie, but it was a script about the Nine. It was a screenplay before Star Trek, and then I guess you'd have to do some deep research into the channelings to find the links directly correlating to Star Trek and the channelings. You know what I mean?
I'm sure they're there though.
Which I haven't done. So.
We have a pet robot named Data.
All right, so where are we at here? So other people getting Richard Hoagland.
Oh yeah, there
All right,
are a
because
bunch
then
of
this all the people with the that were tied in the Face on Mars stuff
Right.
in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's it? We found this one article and it actually had like a really good overview of who's who in all this. There was, Puharich, Roddenberry, Uri Geller,
Mm-hmm.
Richard C. Hoagland, definitely his name comes up. Al Gore is even mentioned.
I knew it.
So where was it? I know we got it somewhere, man. Where'd it go?
Hey, what's that phone number?
I don't know. I forgot.
Oh, so that's why no one's calling.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what 2 does when he dies.
It's just it's such a huge rabbit hole. Like this whole
Elon Musk. It's so hard to organize all of this stuff, guys. I mean, it really is just goes on forever and ever. But where is it at? The number is 757-528-8130. That's 757-528-8130. Go ahead and get in on a little bit of action.
Okay,
You know what I
like-
mean, give us a call there.
Oh yeah.
we
They
found
weren't
this
doing it.
concerning the whole Star Trek connection. I found this one article. It's the Council of Nine in the Star Trek pantheon, and just a brief overview. The first part of it opens up with I've looked into the story of the Nine before, but while doing research for my sci-fi symbolism book, it's well known that Gene Roddenberry had extensive contacts with the Nine, as well as John Poville, who worked on the show Sliders, as well as the synchronistic cult fave Total Recall. But it's lesser known that there are 9 major characters in the original cast of Star Trek The Next Generation, all of whom had direct counterparts in the Egyptian pantheon.
Oh, I love that kind of shit.
So for your entertainment, it's an excerpt from this guy's upcoming book dealing with Star Trek's connection to this very mysterious and powerful group. So they go on to talk about how, the Council of Nine inspired all these characters that come up in Star Trek. And the book is called The Briefing for Landing on Planet Earth by Stuart Holroyd. So we'll post links. They talk about how, the new captain was intentionally designed as Roddenberry's fantasy version of himself. The Star Trek creator wrote that Jean-Luc Picard is an older man, thoughtful, compassionate, hard but fair, but, irresistible to women.
Gashing.
Picard would have been played by Patrick Stewart, no stranger to ritual drama himself, having already played in 2 separate Sun King films, Dune and Excalibur. He would have been the father god Osiris, Zeus, Odin, Yahweh, or whatever, what have you.
Dude, Patrick Stewart had a fucking awesome mullet in Dune. It's worth rewatching just for that. Seriously, go check it out.
Awesome
It will
mullet.
change your life.
Going back to Puharich for a minute, man, I just want to kind of See, now this can go either way, too, because, I mean, this guy was definitely motivated and was, like, obsessed with parapsychology. So this is a little biography by Eileen Garrett, who was intimately involved with them. And so as he approached the 30th year of his life, he stepped onto the path that would set minds spinning that made Aldous Huxley call him one of the most brilliant minds in parapsychology. Yeah, he was friends with Aldous Huxley, too, Brave New World.
Yeah.
That made others doubt his sanity or call him a liar and a cheat, but whatever he was, he opened the eyes of many to the incredible mind power we all possess. Andrea's first task was to get funds and start a nerve research program on animals, but this was easier said than done, and in order to make a living, he had to go back to the practice of medicine by making house calls.
Back when doctors actually made house calls. Man.
In December of 1948, he got his first break when a neighbor, Roy Hines, gave him the use of a barn as a laboratory. The winters in Maine are cold, always below freezing level, and at night reaching levels of 10 to 20 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit. Determined to build research facilities, he put on 4 layers of clothing, 2 pairs of gloves, and worked hard to keep warm. Yet as he worked, building lab partitions, lab benches, etc., he kept thinking about telepathy and wondered what the hell he was doing freezing his butt off while he wanted to devote all his time studying the human mind to find someone who could do telepathy. So, I mean, this is just showing, like, his drive to do this, you know what I mean? Like, gets a barn and, like, builds it out in minus 20 degree weather.
Yeah. Really dedicated.
So the barn was 2 miles away from the cottage where he lived, and one evening as he walked home, feeling despondent, he noticed a flickering light on the snow. He knew that there were no cars, no lights, not even houses. He was all alone on a country road, and there was no possible source of the flickering light. Looking up at the sky, he was awe-stricken, for he saw for the first time in his life bizarre light patterns of the northern light. The light display was so overwhelming that he forgot the cold, his hunger, weariness, and loneliness. He stood in the road for half an hour, neck bent, drinking in the splendor, and he knew that whatever happened to him in the way of adversity, he would not cease from his quest.
Nice. Maybe he got a subconscious message at that point.
So, meanwhile, the Balakovic, oh yeah, go to Gulag, had not remained idle and had stirred up an interest for their protege among their rich and influential friends. And by June of 49, he had received a total of 13 grand, son.
Ooh.
1949 money.
Bucks, that's like 15 grand today.
Wow. Within a few months, 3 young assistants who loved the idea of the barn laboratory in the woods joined him. They collected animals for nerve research, and soon the barn was populated with sheep, goats, dogs, rats, and mice.
All in misery.
So you get these electrodes out of my head.
All right,
terrible,
chop that dog
man,
open.
terrible. Curiously enough, the first research Andrea did with Samuel Rawson, a New York hearing specialist, the transdermal device hearing aid, which he developed later with him, we shall see further on. To one of his last projects when he became suspicious that the transdermal neurophone technology was being used for adverse purposes. So this lady who was intimately involved with him is saying that he wasn't doing brainwash with it. He was worried that people were doing brainwash with it, which could kind of fit an MO, the way they compartmentalize stuff.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Here, do this.
I can see that.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, that's another point there. So, what he wanted to test on animals was his theory on the cause of conductive deafness. This is Dr. Rawson now. A few years later, he got world acclaim for his Staples mobilization surgery, making it possible for millions of people to hear again. In order to shield and house...
Yeah, that's a pretty cool thing to do for the world.
Yeah?
Yeah, at least the shadowy overlords do something nice for us once in a while.
Yeah, you know, all them mouses with the things in their heads. Little... In order to shield and house the delicate nerve electronic equipment which he had built, he put them in a small room constructed entirely of metal. When such a room is grounded to earth and with the door closed, no door is open. But as soon as the door is closed, and providing there is no electric wire passing through the walls, the radio will be completely cut off from the broadcasting station. The radio waves are blocked and cannot penetrate the interior. Such a room is called a Faraday cage, after the inventor Michael Faraday, a British chemist and physicist.
Faraday cages.
He didn't realize it would be so important to his future research. Dun dun dun.
See, it does seem like he's exploring. He's going where the research is taking him, and that's that leads me to believe that he might have innocent intentions and
Right.
It's
possible. And then how do you explain the channelings?
It's fucking ancient zombie gods and shit. Man. I mean,
Zombie gods?
Undead.
So, I mean, it goes on and on. You can actually read this bio on yurigeller.com. So, there it is up on the screen. Check it out. We're not going to finish that because it's like blah, 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 blah,
we could
blah,
honestly,
blah, 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 blah,
we could honestly do a whole month on this one general subject matter.
Yeah, Uri Geller could be a whole show.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I'd like to point out, too, about this character is that he had attempts on his life, which he then claimed were the CIA. So, what's up with that?
You got what kind of attempts was it? CIA.
I'm not sure exactly what it was,
usually
man.
Pretty successful. I would like to think. Some guy working out of a barn is probably not going to outsmart.
No. This is way past that. The barn thing came before
early on.
Before the military. So what happened was he ended up following the wrong political candidate. Like they're supporting some progressive guy that had some, I don't know, and it pissed all the locals off. He essentially got evicted from the barn, and he moved his headquarters. But then that's when he started getting involved with the military stuff.
Yeah, at that point they were like, all right, cool, we'll go ahead and start throwing some money behind your research. Check this out. It says, Andrija Puharich had absolutely no doubts that Yuri's psychic talents were genuine. Neither did he doubt Yuri's story that he'd seen a UFO, and that a being from outer space when he was only 3 years old. And he goes on to describe this huge UFO coming down. And the being he described as the shadow of a huge figure, like the shadow of a man with a long cape, because there are no arms or legs that he could see. And as he stared at this figure, a blinding ray of light came out from its head and struck him so hard that he fell backwards and fell into a deep sleep.
Sounds like a fucking robot to me.
Uh-huh.
Robot expert.
Well, it says, one day when Yuri was in a deep hypnotic trance, the voice spoke through him and delivered the following message. It was us who found Yuri in the garden when he was 3. He is our helper sent to help man. We programmed him in the garden for many years to come, but he was also programmed not to remember. On this day, his work begins. Andrea, you are to take care of him.
That's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another interesting thing is the Law of One is another set of channelings, right? And David Wilcock and Corey Good claims to be in contact with aliens, a group, I think it was 5, might have been 7, different alien species, of which he's only seen like 3, with the blue avians, so the big blue birds, the triangle-headed beings, and I forget what the other one was. But
you think the triangle-headed beings are the mantids?
So these entities that he's in contact with allegedly are supposedly behind the Law of One channelings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I did a little search in the Law of One for Council 9, Henry Puharich, and I got some hits. Is the Council 9 the same 9 that was mentioned in this book? Motions to the book, Yuri.
Okay.
So we're talking about the same Council of 9. Right? I am Ra. The Council of 9 has been retained in semi-undistorted form by 2 main sources. That known in your naming as Mark, and that known in your naming as Henry. In one case, the channel became the scribe. In the other, the channel was not the scribe. However, without the aid of the scribe, the energy would not have come to the channel. So Henry Puharich is another name for Andrija.
Oh, that's his birthday.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
I see. So the 9 describe themselves as the 9 principles of God. Can you tell me what they mean by that?
Well, wait a second. Let's back up here.
So now you got this channeling of this species or this social collective, Ra, is what this is supposed to be, a social collective, like a hive mind, like you were saying. Sure. Like an energy.
Just like a tomb.
Once you move
it's
up
one of the gods.
in the ethereal evolution chain or whatever,
Right.
you move through the densities or what have you, you come to a point to where your social complex is essentially one hive mind.
Well, yeah, and what's it? Even Kabbalah basically says that like, what's it? Once you get past, once you get to the top 3 Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, Keter Chokman Bina, you pretty much lose your individual identity and start to
Right.
I would say, look, we're already in
expand
there.
into
I
the
would say
spiritual densities.
We're definitely already becoming a hive mind. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to hold this up and communicate with any other human on the earth right
Mm-hmm.
now instantaneously, or look up any fact or whatever, be reached, from wherever wirelessly. I mean,
Yeah,
we
you can text somebody
absolutely-
and literally on the other side of the planet.
We live in a like a global culture now. Over the course of just a couple of years, really. It's
Mhm.
it's pretty
Definitely,
crazy how
and
fast
it
it's
directly correlates to the cell phone and the
put it in-
capability of the cell phone,
put it
like
in
what it
everyone's
started
hand.
out as.
I mean, eventually, not long from now, this will be in us, and that's just like you're talking about, evolving through the stages. We're pretty much it's 11 p.m. We're almost there to that final stage where really what's left. Put this into the
Get off world.
get off world's an important one, but biologically, I mean,
So
that's the next step.
A synthesis of meat and technology.
Listen to the protesters chanting stuff. Have you seen some of these videos recently of these people
Man, I don't even-
chanting these weird cult-like chants in perfect unison in the same exact pitch? I mean, it's like 15 people
Like
standing
Go
there.
Redskins?
Just political protesters. These it's crazy. To just hear them break into a chant and just have 5 people just going, "We see you, we love you, we see you, we love you, we see you," for 2 minutes straight, monotone, 5 people doing. I mean, that's fucking weird. That's not okay. It's very strange hive activity emerging.
that's like, man, back in the day when I was doing the activist thing, I had went to one of those anti-war marches that was like put together by all those left organizations like Move On and all that, and I saw some stuff there that like was just pretty crazy, man. Like the standard thing, and you see it a lot, is when they beat on the drum and they're like, "This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like." And that, I don't know, man. It just
it's all the same shit, but it's really meaningless.
when
It's
you
just
go
that-
to one of those protests that's like that scale, it's almost like a festival.
right, yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you're walking around, there's people. There was a dude on stilts, like dressed up with an Uncle Sam, like
Well-
elaborate paper mache thing with these like hang bush things.
If
and,
there's
like,
ever a big protest
paid.
around here, I say we go out there, we go to Sam's Club or BJ's or wherever, and we get like a whole like case of Mylanta and like Pepto-Bismol and a whole case of do-rags and like maybe some bricks, maybe just a few bricks, and we go out and we just try to sell as much supplies to whoever's buying. But nothing. Okay, tell you what, we won't sell anything for offensive use, but like small things of milk to wash your eyes out, the pepper spray out of your eyes.
just charge like $1 a squirt.
Yeah,
That's terrible.
Fuck them.
I'm just saying, if people are gonna protest to wash
You
your
guys
eyes
are
out,
terrible,
might as well
man.
make a buck off
Those
them.
people don't have any
just
money
charge
anyway,
like
let's be
$1 a
honest.
squirt.
It's counter economics at work.
Fuck them.
I'm just
Oh,
saying,
hey,
if
look, you're
people are
talking
if-
twice. Why is that doing
Why,
that?
dude?
I don't understand.
What happened?
So it says, right now they're using human input to help. This is coming from the YouTube chat, to help computers learn morality. They give no-win scenarios where you basically choose who dies. It's supposed to help the automated vehicles when it comes to choosing what to do in a no-win accident situation. So, like, whoa, it's going to be like, your car is going to be like, ooh, you old. Boom! Oh, sorry. Sorry! Yeah, ooh, you old. What? What? It's not that, man. Relax.
Yeah, I think that's actually weird because we're starting to get into, that's where it starts to bleed into this social morality realm, and I know we're not getting into current events and all that too much, but what was going on with Google, there's very much a clamping down of this social science that's been taking place, and don't dare speak out against it
Right.
because you'll lose your job. That type of thing. That's America in 2017 is it's a little strange to have that be a real.
No, well,
real thing.
we've been talking about it a lot. I'm sure you may have heard it here and there.
I don't watch this shit.
The chips, the companies starting out with voluntary chipping.
Oh, I saw that.
And now
yeah.
there's one in the U.S. doing
For
it.
the break
and-
room.
Right. So, and Penny Bradley brought up a good point one time about how that's in her experience with AI in her secret space program thing. That's how it starts out.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then it becomes mandatory in a sense that you need to get it in order to be able to survive and compete in the world.
Well, eventually it'll be like you can't walk into this building
Take
without
this device right here. I went a really long time without getting one of these, but eventually it'll come to the point where I will have to have something like this.
Yeah, it'll be an identification.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's already. I mean, if you're walking around a big city like New York or something, you have to have identification. People talk about that as like this optional thing or whatever, but really functionally in a large, space with a million people like that, they can't just let people into buildings and stuff. I mean, everywhere you pretty much have to show identification to like prove that you're supposed to be in this neighborhood, or the police will stop you and ask for identification.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, man, speaking of which, SpaceX to launch supercomputer to space, guys.
What was its name?
SpaceX?
No, that computer that
Oh,
was communicating.
we're about to
with-
find out now.
Yeah.
SpaceX is poised to launch an unmanned cargo ship toward the International Space Station Monday, including a supercomputer that could direct astronauts on future deep space missions. All right, so let's break this down now. Will they even let it go up? Because obviously whatever they're doing is probably not that.
Did you apply? did you apply to Nachtwaffen for your permit?
You just talked to their defense force about that. No, but seriously, you remember the one that got blown up by the insect?
Mm-hmm.
The SpaceX rocket?
Well, they were still testing the specific rocket, the Falcon 9, at that point. So that was a.
So you're convinced that that was an accident?
I mean, they were testing a rocket. It typically takes like fucking 10 years to test a rocket. They've
No,
got
I
that
understand
rocket
that,
functional
yeah.
in like 2 years. So I mean, it happens. But sure. I mean, we can blow rockets up. I think that's what we've been doing in North Korea for the last few years.
So the liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket carrying the Dragon cargo ship. That's interesting too in itself. I mean, Draco correlation there maybe.
Yeah.
Is planned for 12:31 p.m. from Cape Canaveral, Florida. So SpaceX just took over Cape Canaveral. They're like, nah,
I thought they had
this is ours
I
now.
think they've got their own facility.
The mission is the
I don't
12th official trip for SpaceX. 12th. I love how they specify 12th official trip.
Yeah. Well, maybe
Like,
there's
you
some
know.
unofficial ones.
That's what I'm saying. Which has $1.6 billion, count 'em, $1 billion contract with NASA to supply the astronauts living in orbit over 20 such back and forth journeys. Did it?
It's cool.
How much did it cost NASA to do that? So what was it, like 10 times that figure or something?
Well, NASA puts a whole lot more into,
Soldering circuit boards. for certain.
redundancy and NASA goes overboard on safety.
I mean, think about it.
they-
Really, NASA was started by Nazis, and we know how they were with bookkeeping and shit. So, like, what? You didn't like that, did you?
I don't know.
Mad at you.
Yeah.
So, about 10 minutes after launch, the rocket will explode and shatter radioactive material down upon the population. I mean, I'm
Sweet.
sorry. The rocket will attempt. The rocket will attempt to make a controlled landing on solid ground at Cape Canaveral as part of SpaceX's ongoing effort to reuse rocket components after each takeoff. That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad. I haven't been keeping up with this in the last year or something, but I imagine they've gotten quite a bit further along with that.
If Monday's launch is delayed for any reason, the next attempt would have to wait until next week due to a spacewalk planned Thursday by Russian cosmonauts, who will deploy a series of satellites from the orbiting outpost. Complicated cargo. So here we go. Dragon's packed with 6,400 pounds of supplies, including a sophisticated supercomputer made by Hewlett Packard Enterprises. It is not sophisticated supercomputer. That's like the worst shit ever.
Just give me an old desktop they sent up, it's an old CRT monitor. And
It's just a
cigarette smoke stained white.
It's a shipping
body,
container full of
They
like.
sent him a 56K modem.
Here you go. We've got this old Pentium 2. You guys could just have it.
It's a shipping container full of old office computers.
So it's called the
With our power
Spaceborne.
divide.
It's called the Spaceborne computer. The goal is to test the computer for 1 year to see if it can operate in the harsh conditions of space, about the same amount of time it would take for astronauts to arrive at Mars. As astronauts travel millions of miles away, communications will become increasingly delayed. Messages from Mars to Earth would be delayed for between 4 to 24 minutes one way, depending on the distance between the planets, according to the European Space Agency. The other Nazis. We should go punch them.
Just go punch them. That'll change.
But man, hey, listen, all you people out there running around
Earth
talking about
Nazis,
punching
space
Nazis,
I mean,
go
if you
punch somebody that works at NASA, man, because they're Nazis. Go punch them. All right. So it's supposed to provide sophisticated onboard computing resources that are capable of extended periods of uptime. So it's a first step in that direction. So another experiment on board is the scientists study Parkinson's disease in greater detail in hopes of, I don't know.
How do they do that?
It says unimpeded by gravity, protein crystals can grow larger in space, and scientists hope to use this environment to help them understand an important protein in Parkinson's disease.
It's a $700,000 test tube.
Well, at least they're subcontracting it out now. And it's not like, because I would have got to imagine if they're doing it for like 1.8 billion, NASA was doing it for like 30 quadrillion.
Yeah, well, all the packages.
It says other experiments on board include a stem cell investigation for growing new lung tissue. That's pretty rad.
That is.
Oh, they're sending Michael J. Fox up there? Is that what I'm reading?
Michael, you're
Developed
terrible,
the
man.
research project.
Dude, you're terrible.
No, I'm reading the article.
So one article said that Puharich's family didn't want to disclose his cause of death, but then another one says that he fell down a flight of stairs.
Right.
Yeah.
Fell down a flight of stairs.
Or before we get the break, the Phantom Spy is going to quote himself to death. Oh, look at all those windows
What the fuck
open.
are you doing?
I don't even know.
I am raw.
Doesn't
Your
even
show
know.
I
has
should
gone
not
off
have
topic.
control of this.
You want to do it?
I would.
China focus. China's satellite sends unbreakable cipher from space. Remember we were talking about this? Quantum encryption?
Yeah.
Oh, damn it, they did it.
Yep.
Space is where the quantum shit's going to happen.
All right, so Chinese scientists have become the first to realize quantum key distribution from a satellite to the ground, laying the foundation for building a hack-proof global quantum communication network.
In space. Don't forget that part. It's floating above the Earth.
But the Earth is flat.
It's a network of encryption.
But it's water. How does it work in the water?
So the firmament, how did you get it
How?
stuck up in the...
Why come?
It's like jelly, so it just stops.
The Nature reviewers commented that that the experiment was an impressive achievement and constituted a milestone in the field. I'd say, man, quantum encryption via satellite from space.
Yeah, that's pretty...
But what if one
some
of the
hot shit
turtles
right
eats
there.
a satellite? It's turtles all the way.
Oh,
around.
that's right.
Yeah, but they're big. They're so big. They wouldn't even notice.
Chinese philosopher. So there you go. China did it, man.
Hack-proof communication.
Well,
Huh?
if
Yeah.
we're hearing
Hack-proof
about it,
If it's a powerful
communication,
quantum
guys.
computer, then which scientists around the world are still developing. There's not a true quantum computer yet, but
Right.
there will be. It's
You know
just
what
a
I
matter
had-
of time.
There
don't
is
understand
one. I'm sure there's quantum computers, but you're not
Oh, yeah,
allowed to
that's what
fucking
I'm-
know.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Well, it's weird that we've known about quantum entanglement and we've experimented with it for so long now. And I know that it's a vast future technology and all that. It's not going to be just a breakthrough immediately, but like it's weird that we don't have some kind of communication device based on that already, like an Ansible
Right.
type thing. Instant. I mean, why not?
Now,
if we can rig up two particles to be, quantumly synced for maybe 5 minutes or whatever. I mean, that's my understanding is they're able to do that remotely now.
Mm-hmm.
So isn't that the device essentially at that point?
Right. Well, I said on the show before, and I don't know if you've come across this in your own checking stuff out. This temporal drive that they allegedly have within the breakaway societies that form the secret space program.
Right.
It sometimes can malfunction or something and put you out of time instead of transporting you. So they have their means of communication as quantumly entangled communication devices. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, you remember in Stargate SG-1, they had that in, O'Neill was, or was it O'Neill or Carter who was stuck like 10,000 years in the future?
I don't remember, man.
Maybe it was Stargate Atlantis, but it was one of them. And they basically had to, like, wait for time to loop back around.
I think that was Futurama.
No, that
definitely happened.
It was the same gag.
Dude, there was a whole episode of Deep Space Nine like that, too, where they crash landed on the planet, and then they crash landed on the planet again, and they found out that they had populated this planet because they crash landed on it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You guys remember that? You
I don't remember that
that
one. I didn't watch
That's
all
crazy.
of Deep Space Nine. I missed it.
I did, because I have no life.
You suck.
I was like, oh, what's the next episode? Oh, what's the next episode?
Speaking of Star Trek, when we get back from the break, we should dig into the only planet of choice.
Yep, we are going to dig back into that Council of Nine study, which is quite heady. Quite heady.
More about Puharich, Schlemmer, and maybe even Yuri Geller.
And possibly ton of new news, man. There's all kinds of stuff going on, discoveries, amazing things, whatever, what have you, and whatnot. So,
look at this shit.
we will see you on the other side. We're going to dance to that music so nice. Yeah.
I'm gonna sing it loud.
Thought they would look to us, thought they would follow us, but we were wrong. Thought they would listen, thought they would see, but we were wrong. of Saturn, virgin mother of virtue. Villainous animals will seek out and hurt you, distort you and twist you and misrepresent you. Your elegant innocence has transformed you into a definite target of manipulations and greedy ravagings, of blunder your purity, spoil your seed, shadow you under scrutiny, or hide you entirely from consensus reality. Veritas, one and only. Veritas, our own. Veritas. Seeking her endlessly, she's ever elusive. Further and further now, your source gets diluted, and the well is always deeper. How deep can you dive? How deep is your need to stare the truth in the eye? The truth is that you hide from her. You are vulnerable, as you lied to yourself. Pitiable, as you do. Veritas, one and only. Veritas, our own. Veritas, we will find you. We will know you. We will own you. Veritas. Control you. We will keep you hidden well.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. If you like what you see, you can give us a like and let us know, because we care about that sort of thing here. So, you can check us out on Facebook. This is the obligatory go to our pages, so you know, in case you're wondering.
Facebook.com/realitybreak, although you probably know.
Check us out on YouTube, Reality Brief.
We
Give us a
occasionally tweet.
subscribe there.
Reality
Retweet.
Brief 111.
111. Give us a call now, 757-528-8130. Let us know what you think about this whole thing here, this whole Council of Nine channeling. Is it CIA implanted? Is it not CIA implanted? What are the implications for the secret space program and Corey Goode and David Wilcock, considering the Law of One mentions the Council of Nine and legitimizes it? Like I said, if you want to get in on it, do it now. So, what do you got there, Dan?
So, this book called The Only Planet of Choice. And this book seems to be about Gene Roddenberry, his involvement with Puharich. Here's an overview. Did you know that Gene Roddenberry researched background material for his Star Trek series with a distinguished international group using a medium? The group was comprised of doctors, scientists, teachers, ambassadors, athletes, and filmmakers from several countries. The medium, Phyllis V. Schlemmer, was an internationally known psychic and healer of unusual ability. See author bio. She was a colleague of Dr. Andrija Puharich, who recognized the 9 universal beings who came through her when Phyllis was in trance. The 9 are a group of wise universal beings. When Roddenberry asked where the 9 came from, their answer was, the zone you could call cold in deep space.
Whoa.
Sound familiar? Deep Space Nine became a hugely popular television sequel to Star
Deep
Trek.
Space Council of 9, dude.
For over 30 years, Phyllis, the Nine, and this multinational group have collaborated to investigate, amongst other deep questions, the origins of man. The result is a remarkable book, The Only Planet of Choice, Essential Briefings from Deep Space, a unique document of transcripts and conversations with the Nine. What is so special about The Only Planet of Choice? Those who've read it from around the world have given their verdict, and it's hugely enthusiastic. Many have described it as the most important book of our times. Many have felt a compulsion to spread the word about it and pass copies on to others. Compiled into a fascinating and highly readable book. So this is basically a shameless plug for this book.
Yeah, this is coming from the books.
Yeah, this is coming from the author.
So,
but that's what it's about. It's about Puharich, Roddenberry.
Hey, you know.
Do what you gotta do.
Check that out. Maybe I'll read that book one day in my long list of books to read. But Star Trek, though, cloaking devices?
You know, Toyota just invented one.
Oh, my God. Toyota just patented a cloaking device?
Really?
Look,
the all-new 2018 Toyota Tavaro.
Listen, guys, it's no secret. I've said it before. I work on cars at a dealership for a living. And don't do this for a living. That's for damn sure. Now, this is going to be very interesting for me.
Yeah, why would you want a cloaking device on a car on the road? That seems like the worst place to have a visibility.
Maybe they don't put it on the car, man.
They put it inside the car. So
no, maybe it doesn't even have anything to do with a car whatsoever.
Maybe they put it on cop
Maybe they're selling it to the military.
Yeah,
I mean, they don't just do cars, man. They make robots. They do all kinds of shit.
What's the patent? Is it for a consumer, consumer vehicle too?
Oh, they're gonna do it. Invisible? They're gonna do it. Listen, I already know it, man. It's going to be windshields that are made of metal. Toyota is developing a device that would allow objects to turn invisible, or at least transparent. The Japanese car maker recently received a patent from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office for a device meant to improve the visibility of drivers.
I could see it. Okay, so it's going to be some sort of, they're aligning the molecules or something electronically.
And it would certainly be useful on spacecraft.
For better invisibility. This is on futurism.com. You can check this out yourself. From cloaking devices that conceal spaceships to Harry Potter's hand-me-down disappearing blanket, everybody knows and loves that one, or even the One Ring and its power to conceal the wearer. Invisibility is a staple in science fiction, and in fiction in general. Scientists have been hard at work, however, to bring such a technology into reality. Joining the research and development of cloaking technology is Japanese car manufacturer Toyota.
Who would have thought? The company recently acquired a patent from the United States Patent and Trademark Office for apparatuses and methods for making an object appear transparent, which Toyota filed last June 17th. Seems exciting, especially since it's a car maker working on an invisibility tech or cloaking device. It's actually is interesting, but it's not because it's meant to turn Toyota's cars invisible, at least not all of them.
Interesting. So the patent describes a cloaking device designed to turn vehicles A-pillars, and for those of you who don't know what that is, that's the pillar right there next to your windshield.
Oh, man, my Durango, that is the worst. That Durango,
that's what I'm saying.
Right?
You put it inside the car to kill blind spots.
Seems ironic that a cloaking technology would improve invisibility, right? Toyota thinks that's the way to go, especially since A-pillars have become rather large following crash safety standards. The wider they are, the more they end up obscuring the driver's vision. Here's my thing. All right. As a mechanic, I know that almost all manufacturers have an airbag here.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does that do for crash stability and reliability? Where do they put that airbag that goes here?
Well, I mean, even
How
if they
rigid
even
is
if they
that cloaking
can,
material?
Even if they can, make the airbag a long thin
Now-
device or something that's it's less to look at, less obscuring.
It seems like it would be easier to have this panel some sort of LED screen, because they have that flexible screen tech now,
The problem
and just
with-
have cameras.
I know what you're saying, but the problem with that is a line at you would have to project it
Right.
exactly where the viewer is looking.
I think it could be done because
You could
listen,
do it with a heads-up display on the windshield. I think we'll see that pretty soon. But I think something like that, it would. I mean, it could work, and it would probably work, but it'd be
in my experience, all those cameras are definitely very aimable and require processes to aim, especially, and recently I've had this run-in with this radar thing that's for the adaptive cruise control, and I've had to aim that. So I could see it being able to be aimed. They use targets, and,
right.
it
Yep.
wouldn't be much harder than what they're already doing, I think. So pretty interesting there. So according to Toyota, such technology is already possible. I'm sorry, you want to start there?
Oh, sure. Like the Rochester cloak, which is links out somewhere. I'm not familiar with that. But it would require video cameras and other expenses, equipment for it to work in cars. So this sounds like what you're talking about. In fact, I think I have seen this cloak where they're basically projecting onto the cloak an image of a video camera that's, capturing the scene behind the cloak. So it's a lo-fi, ultimately impractical cloaking technology.
So the Rochester cloak is a real-life invisibility cloak using flat-screen displays to widen the range of angles that can be hidden from view. This allows the user to move the concealed object without it peeking out through some angles.
Oh, I hate when stuff peeks out on my cloak. Okay, so that's the Rochester cloak. But it would require, etc. This cloaking device, on the other hand, would be a less expensive solution. It would use mirrors to bend visible light around the A-pillar to allow the driver to see through them. This would give drivers a wider view of the road and their surroundings. It would also benefit pedestrians as drivers would see them better. I'm curious about that mirroring.
So they're going to use mirrors to do this?
I don't know if we were looking at a mock-up that was an actual, demonstration of the product up in the top of this article, but it looked like a windshield.
This?
No, up further. It looked like an entire windshield. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sure that's just some stock photo. That's a Honda, I think, man.
it's an actual windshield.
I think that's a Honda Fit.
Gotcha.
I don't know, maybe not.
Because I'm picturing you could make, if you've got this technology, you could just make a eggshell vehicle that was completely, transparent, semi-transparent or whatever. If you've got this,
Now, the thing about it is if you're now taking this Toyota's thing, tossing the car thing aside, and thinking about the military applications of this, because anything like this coming out, allowing a patent to come through has already been militarized a long time ago. Like, no doubt.
right.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, you would be able to pick this up, I think, with some type of, detector. I mean, it's got to be if it's screens, you know what I mean? Now, mirrors, on the other hand,
Yeah,
would be
but
a different
I'm
story.
not sure how they could mirror. I mean, if you're using like fiber optics and you're treating each fiber as like a pixel, you could create a matrix of them that wrapped around an object and would essentially be, paths for light to travel through around an object. But I'm not sure really how you would do that with mirrors. I guess if you had
I mean, it would be like a periscope, right?
Yeah, but you're
The
talking
same theory,
about
right?
an object that's a foot,
Right.
it's 2 feet, at most in front of you, and is. I mean, I'm not sure how you would, how they would actually, what exactly type of mechanism they're talking about beyond just mirroring. I mean, it's not just going to be a surface of mirror, albedo reflective material. It's going to be. They're talking about something more complex than that, I imagine.
All right, well, here's the patent. So, apparatus and methods for making an object appear transparent. Cloaking device includes cloaking region boundary planes oriented non-planar to each other. Each of the cloaking region boundary planes have an outward-facing mirror surface and an inward-facing opaque surface. The cloaking device includes a cloaking region bounded at least partially by the inward-facing opaque surfaces of the cloaking region boundary planes. Half mirrors are spaced apart and generally parallel to the outward-facing mirror surfaces, such that A half mirror is spaced apart and generally parallel to each outward-facing mirror surface.
So they're talking about like a mesh type of a set.
Right.
I mean,
Light from an
I see
object on an object's side of the cloaking device is directed around an article within the cloaking region and forms an image on an image side of the cloaking device.
Well, that sounds pretty passive. That sounds like something that would be a little difficult to detect.
This definitely would be. Yeah, this is like just
there.
some mirrors.
Yeah, there's a diagram of it. I mean, that's like top-down view. So essentially, they've got an invisible tube, which would be your A-frame. It seems, I don't know. I'm a little deflated by that. If it's just some like funhouse mirror trick,
yeah. But it also shows you that it's very easy to do that. Then,
well, let's do it.
That there could be craft flying around employing a similar technology, probably at a cheaper rate.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, I feel like it'd be really easy to cloak a vehicle in the sky. I mean, if you're,
especially using one of these types of
I'm
light
wondering
bending.
something like that. That's a very small space in between those little individual mirrors inside that material. So, what's the bottleneck on what frequencies of light? Like, it might be invisible light, but would you still be able to see it in microwave?
You might have that's a good point. You might have
Put on the glasses! Put on the fucking glasses!
So, there's some UV you can filter out and just see that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Get like a ghosted trail or something in certain colors.
Toyota, man. Oh,
So,
that's cool.
if they come from a higher dimension, would the 9 have any need for optical camouflage?
YouTube chat says Predator.
Anytime.
Yeah, exactly. Predator. That's pretty much what we're shooting at.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime.
So what else we got now?
Anytime.
What you got over there, Dan? Some more.
It looks like the whole Andrija Puharich CIA Uri Geller thing has like two major eras. There's the 50s, early 60s era, and then there's the era of his research that goes into the 70s where things get distinctively weirder.
That sounds like the 70s.
Yeah. So, but there's a lot of other names that pop up in this too. What's it? This is an article we found on rents.com, so who knows if it's,
Yeah, it
the
is what it
veracity
is,
of it,
man.
because you can basically put anything on rents. But it says, although the 9 may appear to be a quintessentially modern phenomenon.
But before you continue, I will say that this was originally printed on or published on the 14times.com in 1999, which is no longer around. It's actually archived on this page, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we could probably go in the archive. That might be a project for later to go to archive and see if it's actually the same.
This whole thing also ties into something called the Stargate Conspiracy by Lynn Picknett and Clive Prince, which we haven't really yet had a chance to take a look at. But,
Hey,
sounds
it's
like
got
it's
a
right up our
Stargate in
alley.
it. Yep.
And if you happen to know anything that involves the Stargate Conspiracy, feel free to call in.
So
That'd be
where are
pretty
you
cool.
going with this now?
Go ahead and call it.
So, what's it? Yeah. Although the 9 may appear to be a quintessentially modern phenomenon, our research uncovered something truly astonishing. It's truly astonishing pedigree. In fact, the story begins nearly 50 years ago. Private research laboratory in Glen Cove, Maine, called the Round Table Foundation, run by a medical doctor named Andrija Puharich, also known as Henry K. Puharich. Set up in 48 to study the paranormal. Amongst noted psychics studied at the foundation, there's famous Irish medium Eileen Garrett and Dutch clairvoyant Peter Herkos. Prominent members included the influential philosopher and inventor Arthur M. Young and the socialite Alice Bouvrier, née Astor. So,
Ringing any bells?
Yeah, the Astor family. What was it? There was
The okay, not ringing any bells. It was
Processing.
the silent bell.
Processing.
Merovingian bloodlines. Basically.
That explains it.
Yeah. So, the 13 families that are supposed to
I
run
know.
everything.
I know.
All right. In December 1952, Puharich brought into his laboratory an Indian mystic named Dr. D.G. Vinod, who began to channel the 9, or the 9 principles. In the months before Vinod returned to India, the group met regularly to hear the 9's channeled wisdom. Never known for their modesty, the 9 proclaimed themselves to be God, stating that God is nobody else than we together, the 9 principles of God. 3 years later, there appeared to be an independent confirmation of their existence. In Mexico, Puharich and Young met Charles and Lillian Laffed, former Christian missionaries who were by then prominent in the burgeoning UFO contactee movement for a description of, well, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep, and you can read that on rents.com/UFO4/plan9.htm. Check it out. The whole thing is long. Interesting,
this
boil
is a
down.
huge wall of text. And see, that's why it's so hard to boil all this stuff down, because it's like, you find one part of the rabbit hole,
Right.
and it just keeps going further. They mention Al Bielek, Bill Cooper, him writing about this, as William Cooper of Pale Horse notoriety is writing of the Nine. He is well on target if he is discussing that powerful and wealthy movers and shakers most certainly are in their loop, and taking dictation from, as times Leon Jaroff is said to have feared, these entities.
All right, so look at this lineup that Puharich put together at one point.
Real quick, can I finish?
No.
Are these the same who, it has been reported, perhaps very widely influenced early proto-Nazi Austro-Germans in their search for renewed sacredness and a recaptured grandeur, but who botched it and gave us a Hitler? So could the Nine have also been behind, most of the bloodshed and terror?
So you think the Nine
across the world in the 20th century?
All right, let's real talk now. All right. Pre-World War II German secret societies doing channeling, right? Real society. You think the Nine is who they were in contact with?
Very possibly.
If there's an organization or an individual, like, I'm still curious what the Nine itself.
The Nine is like the nine gods.
I know that, but I'm saying what truly is going on. If it is a single individual entity, or if it's
wormhole aliens.
Maybe it's 9 social complexes.
Maybe that's what the wormhole aliens on DS9 were supposed to.
9 worlds or something,
Yeah, like, because they say, if we evolve as a species,
with Earth as the bottom one,
right?
If you think about it, like your brain being a radio, and you partially operating in a field that's like shared memory,
right?
When the planet evolves to the form of energy, that's what that is, right? And then it gets to the point where they lose individuality, and it just becomes like one, all those individuals lumping into one of just around this planet, because it's, what I'm saying, so each planet would have a social complex.
It evolves into that. Sure.
So Marcella DuPont of the DuPont family was involved with him.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
That's another one of the Merovingian bloodlines.
They got this guy, Arthur Young. He invented the Bell helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so he abandoned military stuff to concentrate full-time on paranormal type stuff. Right, so this is one of his supergroup, Puharich supergroup. It's pretty interesting, man. I mean, if the CIA really was after him, man, it makes you think, well, what the hell was really going on then? I mean, this guy, he just invented that technology, but wasn't necessarily using it on these people channeling, or he was. The whole Uri Geller supercomputer thing is fucking gnawing at me, man.
Is it really?
Yeah, dude, it's just crazy, man. I mean, like, it's a crazy coincidence, because, like, considering some of the stuff going around now.
Yeah.
Like, what was he actually in contact with? Was he in contact with a knock-off computer?
Right.
It's very possible. Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Was he talking to Penny?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, it was crazy, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail that bit there. Where were we going here? So what about now the links to the church, the UFO cover-up?
Oh yeah, there's this church that it's the American Catholic Church that apparently they don't have any bishops, or all they have is like clergy, but they don't have any physical buildings.
Right. Well, they had one location at one point.
Yeah.
And like they're linked to fucking everything, man. JFK's assassination, like it just goes on and on and on.
Never heard of them.
Neither did I until I started looking into this Council of Nine thing, man. It really is just a deep ass rabbit hole, man. I mean, look, like I said, we'll probably come back. We'll revisit this more than likely with more information, because it's just so much of it. Our Trello is ridiculous full of things that we will never get to in one episode.
Yeah, I know you've got like 2 of those links. There's like 80 links on the screen.
I mean, here, let me just show you guys. Look, all right, this is all coming at one
look at
point.
these links.
Look at all these
Look at all
things.
these
Look at
links.
all these things.
Look at
All
the
these things. All these
links.
things. Yep.
Well, there's that article from Rune Soup that talked about it. Yeah, here you go. What's it? The article leads the seance that changed America. NASA is weird. We all know that it's an on-paper symbols organization that was originally run by a large number of Nazis that
my
America
God,
put
totally.
into work after the war. And despite having an ostensibly non-military remit, the organization picked up the pieces of the U.S. space strategy from the military.
Dude, I totally forgot about that, man.
Yeah, space was owned by the military for over 10 years before the creation of NASA. The military's own OSI was in charge of investigating the Maury Island incident, for example. The incident occurred in 1947, the very same year as the Kenneth Arnold UFO sighting, Roswell, the creation of the CIA, and the creation of the Department of the Air Force. Remember, one of the OSI's UFO investigators was a man named Jack Martin, who happened to be a bishop in a weird fake church known as the American Orthodox Catholic Church, or the AOCC, as was J. Edgar Hoover. The AOCC has only bishops. No priests, no congregations. It appears in the FBI files relating to the JFK assassinations because basically everybody orbiting the main suspects was a member of a fake church whose bishops would investigate UFO incidents.
What?
In the video below, researcher Peter Levenda talks about how the only building he's ever been able to find relating to this mysterious fake church is in the Bronx. And as I watched through it on the weekend, the penny dropped and landed in a weird corner of my brain. So there's this video about this, which it looks like the link to the video has been killed because this article is from 2012. This is the same mysterious group of fake priests described in Dead Names who accidentally attended Bobby Kennedy's funeral and, wrote the fucking Simonomicon. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, there's this widely available version of the Necronomicon that you can get at like Barnes & Noble and Books A Million or wherever. And, it's like $5 for a paperback copy of it, and it's got all the, the seals of the different spirits, and, it's supposed to be derived from ancient Sumerian magic, and, but, it's obviously not the real Necronomicon, but it is one of the world's most widely circulated grimoires.
Right. And, that goes to Lovecraft, which I think this gets into.
So this is that's when it occurred to me that this fascinating presenter wasn't letting on all he knew, but you should always know your audience, no judgment. One way or another, the Necronomicon story just got crazier because these bishops are also connected via a number of weird post-war figures with a really bizarre seance that happened in a farmhouse in Maine in 1952, involving a group of beings calling themselves the Nine.
Wait, who are we talking about there?
And the man at the center of the seance was none other than Andrija Puharich, U.S. Army captain and author of a government paper on the weaponization of ESP.
Oh, Henry.
And that guy is moving in the same murky circles as Bishops Jack Martman and Fred Chrisman. The farmhouse in question was owned by Bizarro Roundtable Foundation and appears to have been receiving funding from the CIA. Puharich first gathered together the 9 people on a warm night in early June. But the most interesting results were actually achieved in New Year's of the same year, and it's a lineup that possibly defines could not make this up. The group included Arthur Young, we talked about these guys, Mary Bancroft, Marcella DuPont, Alice Bouvier, so the Dr. Vinod fellow was there. Not a bad collection of people if you want to promote a specific agenda from the second half of the 20th century, untold riches and connective power in one farmhouse. In fact, you have to wonder what percentage of American wealth was controlled by people related to the attendees. Writing about the face on Mars and its relation to a descendant group sprung from this very seance, Chris Knowles points out, and the other conundrum here is that if the Council of Nine psychics saw this thing before it was photographed in 1976, did NASA go looking for it solely based on their advice? What does that say about the influence of the group that most people could be excused for dismissing as a bunch of gullible New Agers? The Nine would go on to surface in weird places for decades, including near Uri Geller. The AP is Puharich, the first who brought Geller to the U.S., President Ford, Gene Roddenberry, Al Gore, as well as the Soviets surrounding Gorbachev, who were instrumental in the collapse of communism, as mentioned in this old Fortean Times piece. It's not unreasonable to assume that there are many more such places. So the article goes into this big, long spiel about the Necronomicon and how H.P. Lovecraft was actually, connected to these guys somehow too. Kenneth Grant, the major interpreter of works for the magician Aleister Crowley, sees in occult practices and the same evidence for interstellar contact through ritual. Grant made links for this concept within the Necronomicon mythos and sees in it a magical system that is a method for communicating with extraterrestrial beings. If we believe angels, demons, and other spiritual forces, If we look at the system of Golden Dawn, the British Occult Society that exerted so much influence on 20th century magic, we only see faint echoes of this point of view, burdened as it is by references to ancient Egyptian gods and Kabbalistic and Masonic terminology. The magical groups that have sprung up around the Necronomicon, however, are consciously aware of this aspect to their practice and realize that entities whose presences are made during the course of their rituals may be described as either spiritual or extraterrestrial or both. It is entirely possible that the Sumerian religious experience, and hence all religions that we experience in the world derived from it, is based on what could be the most important and profound psychic event in the history of humanity, contact with beings from another planet or star.
You know, back to that shit again. I'm telling you guys, man, if a bunch of ships land, they're like, hey, guys, get on the ships. Don't get on the ships, because they're going to fucking eat you or make you a slave or something, turn you into a fucking cyborg.
Reduce you to a pile of glowing ash.
Look, man, I can't say it enough. I'm going to say it again. You wouldn't get on the bus. You wouldn't get on the train. Don't get on the fucking ship.
And apparently, Tom in these channelings, in these Council of Nine channelings, is none other than Atum. So we've got channelings from Atum and Ra. And in fact, they even mentioned the books of Enoch, which, you know, is another famous series of channelings that gave rise to the system of Enochian magic. Not only did Schlemmer and Whitmore continue their mission, but Dr. Hertak has also moved on. He became a major player in the unfolding millennial drama currently being played out at Giza, but more importantly has established himself as a New Age guru par excellence, traveling the world giving workshops on his book of channeled revelations from the Nine, The Keys of Enoch. So apparently John D. and all that ties back into the Nine. Another Nine channeler, an English woman named Jenny O'Connor, was introduced to the avant-garde Esalen Institute in San Francisco by Sir John Whitmore. There she and the Nine became so influential that they held seminars, and unbelievably were actually listened to on the listed on the Institute staff, even successfully ordering the sacking of its chief finance officer and the reorganization of its entire management structure. This should concern us because many influential people attended the Nine's Esalen seminars, including Russians who were part of the Institute's Soviet exchange program. Some of these later rose to prominence in the Gorbachev regime and were instrumental in the downfall of communism. Well, hey, thanks, guys. The Nine are still very much with us. Of their recent channels, who is also in contact with Tom, is the American writer David M. Myers. He's the co-author with Britain's David S. Percy of that extraordinary tome 2/3, A History of the Galaxy and the Human Race, according to Myers' otherworldly contacts, who clearly have no sense of the absurd. This guy Percy is tied up with discovering the face on Mars. Richard C. Hoagland gets a mention.
Yeah. Told you it was tied in with that whole crowd, the face on Mars crowd.
Puharich was still working for the CIA in the early 70s when he brought Geller out of Israel. Puharich's use of hypnosis is particularly interesting during the Nine Circle. In the case of Uri Geller and Bobby Horn, he first hypnotized them and then suggested that they were in touch with the Nine, and so they were. Ira Einhorn, a close associate of Puharich in the 70s, confirmed to us that he believed that Puharich was humanly directing the Nine communications.
Yeah, it is interesting that all these Nine communications are centered around this one guy.
The evidence that we've gathered... Well, he did mention another channeler. The evidence that we've gathered suggests that Tom and his fellow gods originated not in the stars, but behind closed doors as part of a CIA mind control experiment.
Hey.
Now, what happened to that experiment? Now, with hundreds of thousands of devotees, some in very high places, could the Nine be deemed a success? Of course, that depends very much on what the CIA had in mind, and with their subtle racist propaganda, perhaps some of the New Age Nine should worry the hell out of us. That's how the article concludes, folks. Those are not our opinions. We're just reading what we found.
Damn racist.
We're reading somebody else's opinion. I got an opinion. I read it on this website over here. All right, so look, I found this up on the CIA's website. Now, this came out of some flight. I think this was in the Stargate D-Class docs.
Oh, the thing that, yeah.
And this is an article.
Go ahead.
James Randi.
It essentially, I'm not going to read it.
Is it the same James Randi? He's like the infamous critic. He's got like he's the guy with like the $10 million ESP challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe,
He's a member of the
he's
Inner
a-
Magic Circle
Yeah.
of London, England, and author of The Magic of Uri Geller.
So, his manager,
I might be thinking of something.
his manager, Geller's manager, essentially said that he helped him trick the public, dupe the public, like look in people's purses for shit and stuff like that, radio
Right.
communication, whatever.
He was cheating. He was talking to a fucking spaceship that was giving him the future.
Man, I found this thing. Let me see if I can find it again. Oh, great. It was on the CIA's website, and it's talking about a U.S. space agency considering telepathy energy transfer. It's kind of interesting, man. I never really thought about it like that.
Person to person?
So,
Like energy? What do you-
like me.
I mean,
I guess they're saying the radio waves being the form of,
I could say
or maybe it's not even radio waves. It could be something completely different. Maybe we can.
Well-
Maybe telepathy is based on a neutrino field.
Right. I mean, anything that the body's gonna exert and do is gonna require some amount of energy to do it. It seems reasonable that there would be an exertion
Right.
of energy with any
So,
psychic activity.
but not only is it an exertion of energy, but it's an absorption of outside energy because you're receiving the signal as well. So. When we're telepathically communicating, we're sending and receiving energy, similar to, I guess, the way your Wi-Fi network would work.
Sure.
But energy. Also interesting to note that the U.S. Space Agency is saying that at all.
Yeah. Right.
You
Well,
know what I mean?
you never know 20 years from now what could be standard science. Or 50 years from now. I mean, if you think about X-rays, that's magical beams that, you try to explain X-rays to someone in the fucking Middle Ages, and they're
Right.
going to think you're talking about witchcraft,
Well, you try to
Burn the witch.
explain, most stuff about modern physics to people today, and they think that you're a witch.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gotten so ridiculous, like,
It has. I
it's
mean,
weird. I mean-
speaking of modern physics, man.
Why are you reading those words?
Why are you trying so hard to read that word for? Researchers have officially discovered a new kind of chemical reaction. Oh
Fuck yeah.
boy,
Science,
yeah.
fuck yeah.
So in brief, and then I'm gonna hand the floor over to Dan and let him talk ad nauseum about chemical reactions. Scientists from Columbia University have discovered a fourth class of chemical reaction. This discovery could lead to untold innovation like better engines and an easier ways to understand other planets' atmospheres. Now, to me, this is just a glaring example of maybe somebody does somewhere tucked away in a deep black project, miles under Area 51 or whatever. But scientists, regular ones, don't actually know shit about nothing.
That's a bold claim.
I know that's like a triple negative or whatever, but I don't care. It doesn't matter because, look, they're constantly finding new stuff. They're constantly trying to, force with things that happen that have to change their way of looking at physics and stuff.
Yeah, but that's science. That's how it's always been. That's why it's science.
It's true, exactly, and it just hammers home the point that you can't really take scientists' words for shit.
Well, no, you just have to look at it as science knows what science knows.
No,
it's all
I know.
empirical. So
What
it's
they think they know today could be totally different from what they think they know tomorrow.
What can be proven empirically today is different from what can be proven empirically next week.
So it was not letting. The chemical processes which govern combustion, cloud formation, and climate change, they had to put climate change, are extremely complex. And it appears that some new research has shown that these reactions, in addition to others, are entirely more complex than we ever thought. Researchers from Columbia University, what's the Columbia the god of?
Columbia was an entity that I think was created for America.
Yeah,
No, it was actually a deity from back in the day.
I think it was modeled after the deities from back in the day.
she was
I think it
well,
was
yeah, she was modeled after
created,
Athena.
That's
Yeah,
what it was,
right.
Athena.
Yeah.
All right, so isn't Athena Mithra?
Columbia.
Well, Athena was Zeus's daughter.
Isn't Athena Mithra though too?
Mithras is a dude.
No,
Not anymore, bro.
not
You gotta
Mithra. I'm
check
sorry,
your
Minerva.
pronouns.
Minerva.
Yeah, Athena and Minerva.
So Minerva going back again. Illuminati confirmed, dog. There you go. Hit it on the head.
We're on to you guys.
Mm-hmm. We know.
Illuminati.
You
Look.
ain't slick. Well, while we're waiting for this thing about the new chemical reactions.
So, led by Assistant Professor of Mechanical Engineering Michael P. Burke, they have discovered a fourth-class chemical reaction known as chemically thermonuclear reactions.
Termolecular.
Termolecular. Termolecular.
It'd be a lot easier to just make it trimolecular, but they want to be buttholes, so it's termolecular.
This involves breaking and forming of chemical bonds between three molecules. When the collision of two molecules collide again with a third, their work was published in the Journal of Nature Chemistry. Oh, such interesting. So there you have it.
Hey, it's pretty cool.
They don't know nothing about nothing.
Hey, they know something now.
They know
Possibly.
something about that.
There it is.
What you got there, Dave?
Well, there's something else they finally know about, and it's pretty cool. Is we talk about exoplanets a fair amount on this show.
Oh.
So here's a catalog of best candidates for exoplanets to be kind of Earth-like, maybe even habitable. Gliese 667cc, discovered in 2017. This place would have 3 suns, 23.62 light years away, 3.5 times Earth mass. They think a surface temperature of about 277 Kelvin, which is about 4.3 Celsius.
So on the picture there, what is that, like boiling
Looks nice.
metal?
It just looks like sundown.
No, you don't see that thing there?
Looks like water.
A lake of
Water?
acid.
Yeah.
Like it boiling acid.
It's a beautiful planet if you can avoid the
So
giant
tell us
mantis.
about Kepler 22b. That's an old one.
Yeah, 620 light years away. Let's see, year about 290 days, surface temperature of -12 C, possibly an ocean planet, 2.5 times the radius of Earth.
And I would also like to add, it is a very pretty blue-green color.
That blue-green.
Got Kepler 186f, discovered in
just
2014.
Giant algae pool.
Roughly the same size as Earth, maybe 10% larger, 558 light years away, 130-day long year. Kepler 452b, discovered in 2015. 385-day year, 60% bigger than Earth. So it's a super Earth.
Oh, this is the jam right here.
The TRAPPIST-1 system, discovered in 2017.
So now what is all that
Only
black
40
stuff?
light years
That's
away.
the habitable zone of water. You
Yeah,
see it's steam and
like
it's
showing
ice.
steam, water, ice, yeah.
Oh, just floating around?
Well,
No, it's like in relation to
To
where
show
the
you where
planets
the
are,
habitable zone
the
is.
distance from the
Oh, it's just showing you where the habitable zone is.
yeah,
right.
so there, at
Where-
least 3 of those babies are in the habitable zone.
Right. That's pretty dope.
It's so
Yeah.
wet. So wet.
So that would be
It's
these
like
three?
that one solar system from Phantasy
these
Star 2.
three
Proxima
the
Centauri B.
system lasted 4 seconds.
Yeah, I know, right?
Dude, look at that place, man.
Wow.
Discovered in 2016.
Let's
So
go
this
ride
is Proxima Centauri. That's next door.
Ride a
That's
dirt bike through all that shit.
1.3 times the mass of Earth, only 4 light years away. And then, of course, more to come because, there's squillions of these things out there.
Man, was it you guys talking about something like a 20-year mission to go to one of these, or was that where? I don't know if that was.
Yeah, there was.
Starshot.
Yeah.
What was it? Yeah, it was Stephen Hawking's thing. They wanted to build lots of tiny little probes.
That's right. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then zap them with a laser that would
and just
zing them
send
out to another
yeah,
solar
faster
system.
and faster and faster.
And
Slowing
since-
them down is the hard part, but
Yeah, well,
You know.
but that's the cool part is that like you could just send skazillions of them. So
Skazillions.
Well,
oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
That's
we should
totally
be
it.
doing that as soon as possible. If we'd have done that 5 years ago, we'd be that much closer to a 20-year mission. That'll go by pretty
well, and,
quick.
Imagine when there's like a matrix of tens of thousands of these things that are all talking to each other.
Yeah.
No.
Well, how would you get them to talk? How you gotta
They
think
serve
about
as beacons.
but transmitting a signal that can be received from that far away. You're gonna need a huge power source.
Mm.
I mean, even if you're obstructing a signal, you're still gonna need a huge power source to
What
do
if
that.
you got
That's where
giant?
that Ansible comes in. That's where you entangle 2 particles, and it's just
Yeah,
ones
it's
and
there.
zeros.
Yep, it's
I mean,
connected without
it's-
being there.
That's as soon as we get
Nothing
that,
to it.
we're ready to go.
Oh, and mentioning that TRAPPIST system, now they think it might be older than previously thought too. That's kind of
I
cool.
get some interesting Antarctica news. We haven't heard. Antarctica's kind of been out of the news for a little bit. For a while there, it was like the world is ending. The giant ice cube fell into the water. We're all gonna die. 91 volcanoes between below Antarctic ice sheet.
Fuck yeah, let's do this.
91
Get it over with.
volcanoes. So look, here's a scenario for you. 91 volcanoes erupt in Antarctica and melt all the goddamn ice in Antarctica. Then I think you might have a problem.
Yeah, I think it would take quite a bit of something. You got to think they're
Definitely time
dormant.
to move to
I mean,
Colorado.
Yeah, it would take some sort of like a huge impact or something to trigger that.
So scientists have uncovered the largest volcanic region on Earth. On Earth. 2 kilometers below the surface of the vast ice sheet that covers West Antarctica. Okay, for reference, Queen Maud Land over there.
Yep.
This is where the volcanoes are.
Clever bastards.
Geologists
Fritz,
say...
you're not building the base by the volcanoes, are you?
Nine. The project by Edinburgh University researchers has revealed almost 100 volcanoes, with the highest as tall as the Eiger. Do you know what that is, the Eiger? Maybe look that up. Which stands at almost 4,000 meters in Switzerland. Never mind, don't look it up. Geologists say this huge region is likely to dwarf that of East Africa's volcanic ridge, currently rated the densest concentration of volcanoes in the world.
Man, that fucking region is so dense, you would not...
So dense.
Thick.
How dense is it?
Oh, God.
That baby is thick.
Look,
fuck.
check it out. This is what you see when you're in first grade, and they're like, "This is a volcano that the magma comes out, and you put the baking soda and vinegar right over there." And the activity of this range could have worrying consequences. Here it is. Here it is. Everybody get scared. We're all gonna die.
Here comes theguardian.com to remind you. Fuck!
They have warned if one of these volcanoes were to erupt,
There'd be like magma everywhere down there. There'd be lava and shit going all over the place.
it could further destabilize West Antarctica's ice sheets,
It just melt them right off because it's like a cartoon, right?
said glacier expert Robert Bingham. Who the fuck goes to college like, I want to be a glacier expert? What the fuck? How do you wind up with that gig, man?
Somebody who never wants to be unemployed.
It took them 40 years to graduate.
Dude, how many glacier... That's the whole point. Think about how many glacier experts there are out there. Yeah, if you become a glacier expert, you don't have any competition in your field.
Right?
Nobody does what you do.
Okay, so which an eruption certainly would melt the ice. It's likely to speed up the flow of ice into the sea. Now, I want you to picture this, okay? Now, say the ocean
Hey, that's my stuff.
is this bottle, right? Is this much water, right? And then say like this speck of dust is the piece of ice breaking off into the ocean.
Oh, God.
Okay, how much water did that just displace? I mean, guys, chill the fuck out. We're not gonna die.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Or at least not because of that.
Yeah,
didn't
no,
you
we're
know-
gonna die. We're definitely gonna die, but it's
Dudes.
gonna be the machines. All right,
Guys,
it's gonna be the machines.
I have it on very reputable source that by 2013 the ice caps will be completely melted. So we really need to fucking get to work
Dude,
on
I
this
know, man.
situation and start buying more books about it.
I just wish he could have been president.
Think of how many fucking
Think of how much ice
think of how
there'd
many
be.
books that we could have had.
Think about how much ice there would be in Antarctica
God, man,
for the polar bears
it'd be
to
so
hang
cold
out on.
up there. It wouldn't be dense at all up there.
Okay, so how many lie below the ice? They don't know. It's a bunch of them. Up to 100 so far. They could erupt, cause a chain reaction, flood the planet. That's what they want you to think. So there you go. Hey, if you
But-
want to see more,
yeah.
go to theguardian.com.
And they've been there for millions of years and they haven't had any issues or anything. But, be totally scared.
You know, one thing I want to, while we're on the issue in Antarctica, they say, now a prevalent theory within the secret space program, the, exopolitics type community is, at one point, Antarctica was tropical
Yeah.
and there was no ice, right? And stuff got covered in ice. But wouldn't the ice core samples show that?
I think the stuff turns into oil. That's
Right.
like where the oil comes from. So it's not really like, layers of organic stuff. It would still be like rock and oil,
Okay.
But there's definitely oil up there. Or down there. There's a ton of oil down
aromatic
there.
hydrocarbons.
Yeah, there's a huge supply. I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff down,
Yeah. Well, they say that it's got the largest mineral deposits and stuff on the planet there.
Yeah,
Like
it's
just
like
a
it's like an
vast
extension of Africa, really,
untapped
as far as
resources.
the landscape goes. Yeah.
But it is interesting that, for the longest time, all you heard was, there's going to be this big Antarctica disclosure, there's going to be this big Antarctica disclosure, and what we get? Volcanoes.
Yeah. Well, hey,
What if it could lead to something,
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Coming out of that narrative is that there's tons of ships. Like, I wouldn't say tons. There's several ships. Like, there was a mothership, maybe 3 motherships, that escaped some kind of cataclysm on another planet and landed in Antarctica before it was frozen over,
Right.
and then cannibalized those ships to create a city, and then spread out through the planet. That's how we get the cultural influence of the
Major
space god aliens.
concentrations of aluminum down there or something, some sort of sign like that. It'd be interesting to
I wonder if the
find.
PAX 2 gene is the one that lets you use the chair.
Maybe.
So, an interesting afternote about all this 9 stuff.
Nine.
And,
9
is that apparently
9 9
the way it connected that to the whole Indian mysticism, they mentioned that there's also a thing called 9 Unknown Men. That's a millennia-old secret society founded by the Indian emperor Asoka in 270 BCE. And according to the legend, upon his conversion to Buddhism after a massacre during one of his wars, the emperors founded the Society of the Nine to preserve and develop knowledge that would be dangerous to humanity if it fell into the wrong hands. And apparently there were 9 books. And the books are said to cover these various subjects. Propaganda and psychological warfare.
These sound like lesson names.
Physiology, including instructions on how to perform the touch of death. One account has judo being a product of material leaked from this book. Microbiology, and according to some recent speculations, biotechnology. In some versions of the myth, the waters of the Ganges are purified nanites, basically. Alchemy, including the transmutation of metals. In India, there's a persistent rumor that during times of drought or other natural disasters, temples and religious organizations receive large quantities of gold from an unknown source. Communication, number 5, including intercourse with extraterrestrials. 6, gravitation. Book 6 is said to contain the instructions necessary to build a Vimana, sometimes referred to as an ancient UFO of India. Or, Vimanas, Diglakas, call them what you want.
Diglaka.
That's what I'm going to upgrade from the Durango. I think I'm going to look for one of those.
Look for
Diglaka.
a Hanabu.
Yeah, something like that. A little quicker.
Yeah, maybe a tree work or something like that.
Yeah,
something with at least 3 tree work mentions in it. Cosmology, book number 7. Light, book number 8. And then the 9th one is sociology, including rules concerning the evolution of societies and how to predict their downfall. Well, I don't need a book to.
Well, that's interesting.
I don't need a book to predict the downfall of a couple of societies right now.
It's interesting that they would dedicate a whole book to predicting downfalls, of
Yep.
societies. Such a common thing.
Notwithstanding that fact, such a contraption would resemble a cross between an American state-of-the-art stealth fighter and a flying saucer. Does it mean that air and space travel is well known to ancient Indians and that airplanes flourished in India when the rest of the world was just learning about the rudiments of agriculture? Who knows? Pretty rad. But it does display a breathtaking expanse of imagination which, had it ever been implemented, would have propelled us even further than perhaps even Star Trek.
There's still time.
We've had a interesting. This is kind of shifting gears off from 9 for a second here, but we had everybody is obviously aware of what happened in Charlottesville, and we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this or anything like that. And it's getting close to the end of the show anyway. But I did have an interesting post in our group on Facebook. If you want to check that out, you join that. It's Reality Brief News. So this is from Michael, and it's his take, I guess, on the current situation. Interesting how an issue that is truly not an issue becomes an issue. Ignorance seems to be the cornerstone, and we just keep fanning the flames. How many different sidetracks can people be blindsided by? The problem is that many people are not racist, but to the so-called lawmakers, they are using this and many other creative ways to divide this country and its people. Remember this, they are the problem issue, and they do not care how they keep their power and wealth. I'm asking people to stop helping in bringing this country to the brink of a civil war because of the news or propaganda they spew out of their lying and deceitful mouths. George Bush Sr. stated he was ushering in the New World Order, and as long as we keep bending over and hiding from the truth, he will be right. Since the Civil War in the late 1800s, many have no idea how this country has been stolen from we the people. We went from being people to citizens, and yes, that is a big deal. If people would spend as much time researching the truth as they do about spreading fear and hate, watching TV and the like, then maybe we as a people can stop this horrible group of people. I hate the fact that these people in office are abusing people to do this country harm. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. Ask yourself these few things. Are you tired of war? Are you tired of Flint, Michigan's water problem? Let's not forget about the Dakota pipeline fiasco. What happened there? About the unconstitutional tax code, needing a license to live and make a living. Poisoned food, water, drugs, no recording in the court system. It is our courthouse. I have listed a few things, but many are not willing to make a stand because they don't want to rock the boat. Well, folks, the boat is starting to sink, and the captains have abandoned the ship. Please join with me and share things that will educate people about the true freedom as we humans have, and not just the Constitution and Bill of Rights say we have. We are all sovereign, and around this planet we have been lied into thinking that we owe these leaders anything. People die because people do nothing to stop this. Mikey out.
It's pretty good.
So, I mean, look, I've been saying this. People react. Look, I'm not condoning skinheads and the KKK and shit, all right? But people are getting out of control. I mean, when you're calling for violence, it's just you're not acting any better than these Nazis are acting. You know what I'm saying? Like, the whole punch a Nazi thing is. Look, I understand the sentiment. Nobody likes a Nazi, right?
Yeah.
The thing about this country is
nobody likes Nazis or commies or any brand of authoritarian filth except people who subscribe to that particular brand of authoritarian filth.
But they're allowed to. It's not up to the government. It's not up to you or me or anyone else to say what someone is allowed to think or believe in.
They're absolutely.
Period.
Once they commit a crime,
you infringe on someone else's rights.
But you don't make thought a crime.
Right. There's no such crime as wrong think in America,
and you cannot legislate morality.
What happened in Charlottesville?
The state is the antithesis of morality.
Here's factually, objectively what happened in Charlottesville. Okay, a group applied to protest. They received their permit for a protest. They adhered to those rules. They got shut down, and they went to court. And the judge confirmed their right to protest and to assemble, constitutionally granted rights. That the mayor of Charlottesville isn't allowed to decide what rights people enjoy. So they had an injunction from a judge, and they assembled where they were supposed to, when they were supposed to, within the region set up by the police. They played by all the rules that the police and the city had outlined for them, and they got shut down and pushed into a crowd of violent protesters, and violence erupted. Mm-hmm. Objectively, that's wrong that any group would be treated that way because of what they believe. It's not up to the mayor of Charlottesville to dole out constitutional rights based on what you believe. That's not his role.
Either it's all good or none of it's good.
So every American should be outraged by that, whether you fucking think Nazis are right to believe what they think or not. Whatever happened to, I disagree with what you say, but I'll defend with my life your right to say it. Mm-hmm. That's American.
I actually appreciate it when those people out themselves publicly as the dickheads that they are, because that way I know not to do business with them.
Use your big boy words. Get into a conversation and explain why Nazi ideology is so bad. Do it. It's not a hard thing to argue against. Punching a Nazi is equating speech with violence. And I was just talking, you probably might have seen JB and I were talking about this in the Trello earlier, so I'm repeating some of that. So I do have this rant all loaded up already, apologize. But you can't equate speech with violence because that allows you to respond to any speech that you deem inappropriate with violence.
Exactly.
And that just brings us down to, we're a third world country, and that's not what America is. If you can't speak and listen, if you can't tolerate someone else's speech, then don't listen to them. Period. You walk away. It's not up to someone else to walk away from you because you disagree with them. It's simply not true. You're imposing on their rights at that point. People have to be realistic about this and stop saying, "Oh well, they're Nazis." Oh well, fucking what? No, it doesn't fucking matter.
Man.
It does not matter.
It doesn't excuse it.
It does
man.
not matter. That's
because
the classic example.
Exactly. That's how it starts, man. That's how it starts. It starts with a group that nobody fucking likes, and it ends up with the Jews going to concentration
First, they
camps.
came for the Nazis. You know, it's a funny joke, but it's true though. It's true.
Well, yeah,
if
it's
they
not
can,
a joke
if
at
they
all.
can
Actually,
strip,
it's a dire warning.
You know what's even worse, actually, and I will get into the realm of defending those people there that were for the protest. Is they weren't actually Nazis. They weren't actually all
I
white
seen
supremacists.
photos.
There were a few people for sure, but that's
Right.
You
I've seen
can't-
photos
look,
of a mixed crowd.
You can say
if it's
again. That's
commies
another
versus-
double standard.
If
You
it's
can't-
commies versus Nazis, there's no good guy in the fight.
I agree, but you can't say that. Out of these 1,000 Muslims, there's 5 of them that are terrorists, so they're all fucking terrorists, and we need to watch them. You can't fucking say that, but apparently, if there's 1,000 patriots at a protest and 5 of them are fucking Nazis, well, they're all fucking Nazis, and none of them have any rights.
My question is, though,
Like,
in
let's
defense
think
of
about
liberty,
that.
where do you draw the line? And, I'm all for free speech, but when you get into a place where, you have 2 very vocal groups of people, one of them wants to burn you alive because you're a Jew, and then the other one just wants to take all your property and give it to the state, at what point is violence justified?
Violence is never justified. I'm sorry. I mean, if people
Well, I think
people are attacking you, if people are attacking you, then
if
sure,
you're
defend
defending
yourself.
yourself, yeah.
But
Right, exactly.
Violence as a means
followed-
of political discussion or discourse is not acceptable.
Big
That is
no-no.
that's ISIS level. Okay, tearing down statues because you're upset this week about some shit. That's
actually,
ISIS level.
That's actually
disgusting.
the legal. That's actually the legal definition of terrorism.
Retarded. Oh yeah, it is. Of course. It's
Using
physical acts.
violence
Right.
or threats to communicate a political
The
message.
people who write those legal definitions would know all about that, wouldn't they?
So now another thing I would like to touch on too about this before we get. I'm not trying to, like I said, we're not going to make this all about Charlottesville, but I think we do need to say a little piece about it.
I'm so sick of this subject, actually. Like, the only Nazis
just-
I really want to talk about are the ones in Antarctica.
I just want to
and on
focus
the-
in on here. I just want to focus in on here that it's a known fact that most of the hate groups, KKK, FBI, are indeed run by the feds.
Yeah, Richard
So-
Spencer's a fucking shill.
Everyone's violent reaction to this shit is exactly what they've engineered you to do.
Yep, it's a
and you're gonna
Hegelian
start a
dialectic
fucking
bullshit.
civil war over this stupid bullshit.
DNC.
It's like Mike said, the majority of the people in this country are not racist. Not all white people are racist, not all black people are racist, and so on and so forth.
I would even go so far
But
as
there's
to say
always a small bit.
Sure.
And it goes back to, like you said, you can't legislate morality. Thought cannot be a crime.
right. I would, to extend on what Michael said, I would go as far as to say that Americans are probably the least racist group of people in history because we've grown up in such diverse society. I mean, that's not something that is typical throughout the world.
No,
we need to
it's
realize that. And we have been getting along just fucking fine before CNN told you to be outraged about some bullshit today,
Well, and even then, though, that it definitely depends on what part of America you're talking about, because there are some places you can go. Like,
Sure.
I went and visited a friend in West Virginia, and a few years ago,
97% white. That's
yeah,
true.
like I saw one black guy the entire time I was there. Like, it's really that widespread out there.
But you can go to Mississippi and see one white guy the whole time you're there.
Yeah, that's true.
There are areas for sure. There's nothing wrong with a lack of diversity in that respect. Not every single group needs to be a 100% representation of what numerically. That's where you start to get into the social engineering and the social morality thing that destroys organizations and destroys civilizations, to be honest with you.
Well, look,
it's not making us stronger to embrace, division and weakness.
And that's one point I wanted to make is that, to this day, there have been zero deaths attributable to agorist terrorists. So consider agorism. It's pretty cool.
It sounded right to me.
Man, I just,
Rose-
people, this is obvious divide and conquer strategy, and just don't fall for it, all right? Don't take the response that they want you to take, all right? Take the high road on this one, no matter how much you got to swallow your damn pride.
Roses are red, violets are great. Acquire competing currencies and disregard the state.
It's no secret that a plan for boots in the street is on the table. They've wanted for a long time. It's no secret. It's always, every time. Oh, this one the martial law, this one the martial law. The plan is there. All they need is the right circumstance to enact it. And, a goddamn civil race war.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the powers that be want it. Don't buy into it.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to make any of our lives better, any of our children's lives better, any possible outcome is going to be worse if we fall into this trap. This obvious divide and conquer garbage. I mean, it's clearly a subversion of our culture that's been happening for decades, and it's coming to a peak. You are told what to do by the TV. Well, here's a fucking TV screen telling you to fucking wake up. How about that? Do that.
As far as I'm concerned, the worst terrorist organization out there is, in Washington, D.C.
So edgy, bro.
No doubt, dude. You are edgy. You are the edgiest. Well, one more thing I just want to touch on before we go. I know we're later than we normally do, but it don't matter because we can do what we want.
I gotta eat dinner, Donnie.
No dinner. Hey, get out of there.
What are you doing? Your secrets.
Oh, no, man. I just exposed my whole secrets. There we go.
God, these fucking people.
Powerful Venezuelan lawmaker may have issued death order against Marco Rubio.
I like where this is all going.
Look, this one popped up, man. Kind of caught me by surprise.
Like they're going to be able to afford bus fare.
Apparently, this came out on the 13th, so it's a few days old.
Like anybody in Venezuela can afford plane tickets to America right now.
You guys should really still have a show. I know I told you like a year ago to have a show in Venezuela.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you might have touched on it a little bit.
We did.
Shit has gotten worse.
I know, it's incredibly bad.
Continue.
So one of Venezuela's most powerful leaders may have put out an order to kill Florida Senator Marco Rubio, a fervent critic of South American country's government, according to intelligence obtained by the U.S. last month. I believe anything intelligence obtained.
Yeah, I would love to say, too, just going forward in the next year, 2, 5 years, whatever, if the United States could stay the fuck out of Venezuela, period, that'd be great.
Not going to happen.
That'd be great.
They're just mad that their currency is worth about as much as WoW Gold.
Now it's worth even less since he said that.
So, though federal authorities couldn't be sure at the time if the uncorroborated threat was real, they took it seriously enough that Rubio has been guarded by a security detail for several weeks in both Washington and Miami.
And at the phone parties.
Believed to be behind the order, Diosdado Cabello.
Diosdado Cabello.
Oh, he's breaking down. Hold on.
Someone give me another AI shot. The influential former military chief and lawmaker from the ruling Socialist Party who was publicly feuded with Rubio. It was like it wasn't Trump level though, because it wasn't on CNN. You know what I mean? It wasn't like you got a little wang, or you got big fat head, or you got little ears.
If people need nicknames, I'm telling you, it's such a powerful tool.
Okay, so there you go.
Wait, no, there was even a nickname. It said, look, Narco Rubio.
Rubio.
I call him like Pee Wee Hermano.
All right, so at the July 19th Senate hearing the same day he was first spotted with more security, Rubio repeated this line that Cabello, who has long been suspected by U.S. authorities of drug trafficking, is the Pablo Escobar of Venezuela.
Like you guys don't do that stuff.
A week ago on Twitter, Cabello dubbed the senator Narco Rubio. Ah, Rubio and Narc. Rubio and Narc. Jabba jabba ja. Rubio and Narc.
Narcs eat shit.
The death threat was outlined in a memo to several law enforcement agencies disseminated last month by the Department of Homeland Security. The memo, designated law enforcement sensitive but not classified, was obtained by the Miami Herald. So the memo revealed an order to have Senator Rubio assassinated. Though it was also warned that no specific information regarding an assassination plot against Senator Rubio had been garnered thus far.
We just assumed.
Somebody out there hated him a lot.
According to the memo, Cabello may have been gone as far as to contact unspecified Mexican nationals.
Is this on Fox News? No, it's Miami Herald.
Yeah, I immediately start thinking of the Pollos Hermanos, the two actual brothers guys from Breaking Bad, the guys in the shiny suits.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. The U.S. believes Cabello controls all of Venezuela's security forces. Rubio, a Republican, has President Donald Trump's ear on U.S. policy.
That's bullshit.
That's what, like,
Trump doesn't like Rubio at all.
That's like 100 guys.
Yeah, whatever. Get out of here, little Marco.
He's got his little funny little ears.
He just holds his little hand out and just Get out of here, little Marco.
Lawmakers have been on heightened alert since a June 14th shooting in Virginia targeted Republican Republican members of Congress practicing baseball.
Yeah, remember that? Remember that,
Remember that.
everybody?
Yeah. How come?
Yeah.
How come?
That was more than 2
none
weeks
of the
ago.
Bernie Bros wanted to refer to that as a terrorist
Yeah,
attack?
isn't that crazy?
Isn't it was
There's
more than 2 weeks
no
ago.
calls for like shutting down websites and no calls for tearing down monuments and shit like that. No one had to fucking disavow that guy.
Oh,
Remember?
God. You're such an angry white
Hey, you
guy.
remember like a year ago when 5 cops got shot by a BLM terrorist? Remember that? Nobody was like, "Hey, Obama, why don't you make 5 fucking statements that aren't good enough?" I mean, remember that shit? That didn't really happen as far as I remember.
And specifically. So, once again, that concludes another quality broadcast here at the Reality Brief.
Oh, thanks for
Super
having me,
secret,
guys.
undisclosed location. We'd like to thank Phantom Aspio
Yeah.
coming on by,
I was here.
enlightening us. We'd like to thank the lantern that's been shining in the back the whole time. You guys see that? Oh, it's so hot. We'd also like to thank our Patreon
We'd like to thank
subscribers.
We'd like to thank
If you
Nas.
want to be one of those people that we thanked, you can hop on over to patreon.com/realitybrief and maybe give us some money. That'd be cool.
You know, and
Do I get my-
one other person I'd like to thank too, and you know, as much as we've talked about on the show, you know, whether all of his stuff was channeled by the Nine or not, I'd like to thank Gene Roddenberry for keeping me as entertained as he had. For all those
Oh,
years.
yes.
Gene, we miss you, buddy. We miss you.
I'd like to also thank my mom, and I'd like to also
And my
thank
mom.
Atom, the creator god.
I would like to thank Atom and Donald's mom.
All deities of chaos from all traditions. I'm
Hey.
sure that's one of those 9.
Do I get one of my Patreon dollars back for being part of the show this time?
No, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I get like a refund.
Okay. You can have a refund.
I'm pretty sure I get some sort of a comp or something.
Oh, boy. So, well, that's it. See you guys next week.